Do your students think of the revision process as a combination of spellcheck and Grammarly? Do they tend to peer edit by scrawling a compliment and circling two sentences that are missing periods? Yeah, they're not alone. I didn't really get the revision process as a student either, did you? It sort of felt like I wrote the paper I was going to turn in, then I'd polish it a little bit by fixing any tiny surface mistakes. Students are so busy. They're juggling family, friends, sports, classes, jobs, the college admissions process sometimes, and a complicated world of digital social life that we probably only barely understand. So, unless we can really spell out this revision process for them, they're likely to think that the pretty good paper they felt they wrote in the first place is pretty good enough to turn in. That's why today on the podcast, I'm going to offer you 4 blueprint options for helping them do better. Choose the one you love or try all 4. Have you been wondering how to get started with student podcasting? Would you like to get your students thriving inside this 21st century medium without feeling worried about tech issues and platform choices? I'm now opening the doors to my free summer workshop, Camp Creative. Over the course of 3 days, I'll give you everything you need to banish those fears over podcasting technology, platforms, and privacy issues, and start seeing your students thrive with creative podcasting projects instead. You'll get my favorite models and listening activities for helping students connect to podcasts before they create their own, done-for-you curriculum for launching your first project, and the easiest tools and platforms for recording and sharing student work in a safe way. Just as in Camp Creative's past, each day's training, packed with resources and tips, will arrive in your inbox, ready for you to explore when you have time. You'll find the link to sign up in the show notes over at nowsparkcreativity.com. I can't wait to work with you during this free summer session. Welcome to the Spark Creativity Teacher Podcast, a podcast for English teachers looking for more. More creativity, more engagement, more joy, and no more scripted curriculum, lesson planning ruts, or boring book lists. I'm Betsy Potash, and I'm honored you're trusting me to help. You're not alone on this creative journey anymore. Okay, let's start by talking about this first option for improving the writing process, the revision process. And I'm calling it revision challenges. Now, I have created some little revision challenge cards, and you're going to be able to see the visual in the show notes. But essentially, I have put some strategies on that I use when I'm engaged in my own writing process. These are the kind of strategies that I tend to suggest to students, and I have just written them out as these kind of fun little visual challenges. So if you were to print out these challenges and have them in your room, maybe have them laminated, during the revision process, if a student didn't really know what to do, they could go and grab a challenge card. They could grab the one that appealed to them or that felt like it fit best for them for where they were in their process. And the challenges say things like this. So one might say, read your draft out loud. Look for places where it's difficult to read smoothly or where the ideas seem to blur together. Adjust the structure of your sentences, paragraphs, and paper overall to help make it flow more easily as you read it out loud. This might mean breaking up long sentences, adding different structures if you have too many, short, choppy sentences in a row, or breaking up long paragraphs that address too many topics. Now, I don't know if you're nodding along, but for me, this is one of the essential parts of my own writing process. I like to read something out loud and hear how it sounds, and I find that really helps me improve my structure and paragraphing, and it can do the same thing for students. Now, I have created 4 of these revision challenge cards. You can just grab your copy through the show notes. And then you can also consider adding some more revision challenge cards to build out your deck. If you feel like there are certain things your kids just struggle with over and over again, build those into your revision challenge deck. And then you're going to have these kind of fun manipulatives that you can give to students to help them in their writing process. Number 2, we've talked about this before on the podcast. Consider using revision stations. This is an even more structured approach. This really breaks it down into the step-by-step. Whatever type of writing you're working on, You can develop stations that isolate the specific areas where you feel like your students are going to have trouble. So, for example, if you're doing argument writing and you find that every single time kids just struggle so much with their citation format, or they struggle so much with analyzing their quotations before moving on, or their conclusions are really boring, or their theses aren't arguable, whatever the problems are that you've seen 1,000,000 times, create a station around that problem. Provide the resources they need to understand how they can do it well. Provide models of people doing it well. You might even provide models of people not doing it well with like an explanation in another color that says like, see this problem. Do you have this problem? And then give them time to circulate throughout your room and find the stations that they need. You can have them visit every station, but this is a chance for students to sort of use their own understanding of themselves as writers and pick out the stations that they really need. One kid might be a genius at citing text, but really doesn't get how to create a thesis that stands up, a thesis that you can argue. Another student may write the most beautiful conclusions, but just have no transitions whatsoever. Whatever it is, right? They may know their own problem areas and they may be ready to explore on their own which stations will help them most. Okay, the next strategy I want to share is to give your peer editors really specific tasks. I definitely used to fall into the trap of asking peer editors to just like circle mistakes and make suggestions in the margins, but I bet you're chortling along in your car because you know that strategy leads to a lot of very sparse peer commentary. Students will most likely circle a spelling error or two, notice where there's accidentally 2 semicolons in a row and then scrawl good job across the bottom. Unless that student is already like really excited about English and writing and wants to be part of a whole process, but that's going to be like 2%. Helping peers know exactly what to do will make their lives easier. It will make the help that they provide in the revision process a lot more substantial. So I've kind of come up with some different peer editing guides, some different little strategies that peers can use in different situations. And again, I'm just going to give you the option to grab that free in the show notes. It seems like easier than developing your own, but you can grab mine and then again, as with the revision challenges, add more of your own. There are all kinds of situations where you could have peer editors do different things, but the main bottom line is you want them to know what to do. And if it's vague, if it's sort of grandiose, like help them fix their paper, that is so hard for students. I know you know. Okay, last but not least, I want to revisit a topic we talked about a couple of months ago, and that is using hyperdocs as part of the writing process. Now, the last time we talked about this, we talked about using hyperdocs as a way of speeding up your grading commenting. And I talked about how you could create a hyperdoc for each of the common errors your students make. So, for example, you find that your students are being overly wordy and they have so much fluff and sort of pointless vocabulary and they're using the thesaurus too much. And so you develop a hyperdoc that has the title Avoid Wordiness, Tell It Like It Is. And the hyperdoc has examples of wordy paragraphs and then clear paragraphs. And it links to some of Ernest Hemingway's writing. And it links to like a Grammar Girl podcast about wordiness and about what a problem it is. And it has some challenges for how you can look for wordiness in your writing and how you can cut it out. Now, this is a great thing to use in your feedback. And that's what we talked about here, again, a couple months ago. How you could, in your comments, say like, oh, this part is wordy. Check the wordiness hyperdoc for solutions instead of writing like a paragraph in the margin to explain everything that you would explain in that hyperdoc. And I still love that. And I still think you should do it. And in fact, I'm working on my own series of hyperdocs to eventually share. But this would also be really helpful in the revision process. And you can go slow. You don't have to have like 50 writing hyperdocs at first. Maybe you just develop one, and it's the one thing that your students are making so many mistakes with over and over again. And you create a beautiful sort of extensive resource about that error and how they can avoid it. They can watch a video to show them. They can listen to an audio. They can look at an example. They can look at an infographic you made. And you can provide that hyperdoc during your revision session in class. And you can say, now, this is the number one error I'm seeing everybody make. I want you to explore this hyperdoc, be detailed, choose the resources that work best for you, really understand this common problem and how to fix it, and then go to your paper and fix it, right? And if you need review, go back to the hyperdoc, watch the video again. If one of the lines in your papers just still doesn't feel right, like go back to the model, see how Hemingway does it, fix the one in your paper, right? And then you can be circulating as they're using that hyperdoc as a resource and answering their questions. But everything they really need to know is right there in front of them. Then later in your paper comments, if they still make that mistake and you reference the hyperdoc, there's this complete circle where they had the resource, they knew what you wanted, they explored the resource. If they're still making a small mistake related to that topic, and then you refer them back and say check it again, watch the video or whatever, they're really going to understand what you mean and where this comes from. And hopefully they're going to finally be able to just completely wrap up with making that problem. Okay, my friend, those are my top strategies for helping students with the ever complex, ever challenging revision process. I hope you found one or maybe 4 that will really help you out. You can check the show notes for all the free resources I mentioned. And remember, you can sign up for Camp Creative, which is coming soon in June of 2024.